To get started this week, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce one new topic along with just reviewing two of the topics from last week as well. What we're going to do is we're going to start with reviewing the P, I, M, and A that we discussed last week. Talking about a new exercise and just kind of reviewing those same concepts that we worked on from last week. So in your books, hopefully you have been working on page 84, exercises number 4 and 5, and also page 85 with exercise number 7. Again, these are coming from the updated version of the book. As I mentioned last week, if you do not own the book, just make sure that you do get the exercises from a friend because the versions in the older editions are not 100% correct. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at page 84 again, and we're going to look at exercise number 6 this time. Exercise number 6 kind of combines a lot of the concepts that exercises 4, 5, and 7 introduce. So with this exercise, again, there's a few concepts just to kind of review and be reminded about. When you are finger picking, you want to make sure that you are closing your fist. And I have the camera over here just so you can kind of see my right hand a little bit better as these exercises are going on. Closing the fist. Again, a lot of the times when I was teaching class guitar at my high school, I noticed a lot of kids were always bending from the large joint on their fingers and kind of making like what I described last week as that jellyfish kind of shape. And what's going to happen is that when you do something like that, your hand again is going to pull away from the guitar, which when you try to restart or you just want to bring your hand back down to do another finger picking pattern, it's going to take a lot more time for your hand to come down, and there's a good chance that most likely you are going to potentially put your fingers on the wrong string, which is not something that we really want to do. So by keeping your hand on the fist, it's so much easier because as soon as you let go, your hand just kind of comes right back into shape where it was. Your thumb comes down, your fingers go in. Again, kind of the idea of making a fist or the sign language letter A. So with these exercises, what we're going to do is just kind of take a look at number 6 for today. I would encourage you to continue working on 4, 5, and 7. Number 6, we are going to kind of continue to do throughout the next couple of lessons as well. As you notice, we even go into week 12 with it as well. So let's go ahead and let's give number 6 a shot. As we talked about last week, even though I'm not playing the full open chord, I'm still putting all of my fingers down. It's a great exercise for you to do, and honestly, I kind of consider it like a net, like a trapeze net, in the sense that if one of my fingers, when I'm finger picking, goes onto the wrong string, lands on the wrong string, the best thing that can happen is that I'm still going to finger pick a note that is in the chord. I would encourage you to really work on that, and it may seem, again, a lot easier, especially when you're playing that E chord, just to put down your first finger. Rightfully so. However, in the long run, it's going to make life so much easier. So at this point, what I would recommend is making sure that every day you're going over exercise 4, exercise 5, exercise 6, and exercise 7. You can start to slowly fade out 4 and 5, and then just kind of keep 6 and 7 on a healthy rotation back and forth. Our next topic of discussion is bringing back something that we worked on prior to spring break. We're going to be looking at strumming patterns again. As you remember from your one playing test that we did on one-on-one, I had you guys working on doing that very specific 1950s chord progression with the particular strum. And one thing that I really want you guys to be able to kind of get out of this portion of the class that you can, potentially apply, especially like for those of you that might land a general music job, having guitar and being able to just strum some basic patterns as you accompany yourself, or if you're accompanying students, whether it's for a performance or just in class, these things can come really, these are like really handy ideas for you. So in the description of the video, there is another Google Drive link. So if you want to go ahead and click on that real quick, pull up the document that you have here, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. So when you take a look at this document, it is 2 pages, and I believe that at least one of the pages may have been shared with you earlier this semester. And the second page is something that might be a little bit more new. So I kind of want to just kind of review a few things that we have talked about before. When you're looking at strum patterns are always, they're always a hard thing to teach because a lot of strum patterns can work for songs. Multiple strum patterns can work for a song. And, a lot of the times it just kind of comes down to the personal preference of the person performing. My golden rule with strumming patterns is that as long as it's not getting in the way of any of the other instruments, or it's not getting in the way of the singer, the rhythm should be good. It's kind of hard to teach this stuff because, again, a lot of it just kind of is very dependent on the tune. So if you're trying to figure out certain strum patterns, the best thing to do is if you're learning a song, just listen to it and see if you can kind of figure out the strum pattern just by physically listening to what they're doing. Normally it's going to be very repetitive, so it's going to be a lot easier. So if you can figure it out, normally it's something that is utilized in the song all the way through. So as you're looking at these, one thing that you just want to be reminded about is that when strumming, whether it's in 4/4 or you might have some stuff in 3/4, it's always going to be that the downstroke is always going to be on the downbeat, whereas your upstroke is always going to be on your upbeat. If you're looking at these symbols again, if you're not kind of familiar with this stuff, the first example at the top on page 1, and if you're looking the first 8th note, you have this little symbol up here. It looks like a rectangle with the bass missing. That is your downstroke, so meaning that you're down strum. Whereas your V that's right by on the upbeat of 1 is going to be representing the upstroke. Very common in guitar, whether it's picking or strumming. So again, looking at exercises 1, exercises 2, noticing that when you have a downbeat, it's always going to be strummed down. When you have an upbeat, it's always going to be strummed up. Now, what I would recommend for this is that although, let's say in like exercise 2 where you have 2 quarter notes side by side, a lot of the times you don't want to have your hand just kind of stop moving after you strum one of the downbeats. So my best recommendation is to always try to keep your hand subdividing an 8th note rhythm, even if you're not necessarily strumming every upbeat or every downbeat. So in the case of like exercise 2 is down, 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 up, down, up. The idea being that I still am moving my hand up when on downbeats 1 and 2, or excuse me, on beats 1 and 2, and I'm just moving my hand upward, still where the upbeat would appear, but again, I'm just not making any contact with the string. So a lot of kids, when they're first learning how to play guitar, and something that you might kind of run into if you have a class guitar one day, is that a lot of the kids are going to want to just physically stop moving their hand after the downbeat of 1 and the downbeat of 2, and then they're going to try and like make it as quick as they can to get back up to the top, and they're either going to anticipate or delay the next rhythms or beats, or they're going to they're just going to throw themselves off. So the idea being that you really want to try to get the kids to feel the subdivision of 8th notes. Now, if you get into a tune like in a jazz band that might be like a funk chart, a lot of the times 16th notes are what are subdivided in the tune. So what you're going to do then is you're subdividing 16th notes with just kind of a rapid succession of down and up. So when you're working on this stuff, I would encourage just to try to get this right hand to be on autopilot, because when I'm strumming chords, I'm never thinking this. I'm always worried about what's going on over here. My right hand is just turning on autopilot, and again, I'm just literally not thinking about it. Especially if it's just a rhythm that's just being continued through the whole tune, like a pop tune, if I'm playing a pop tune. If you start to look at the second page, you start to see that they're going to kind of like give you a little bit more rhythms as well. So nothing too crazy. You do have some examples in 3/4, which is kind of nice. If you look at example 5 and example 8, you notice that they're now giving you the R and Fa and also the number 5, which is symbolizing the root of the chord and also the chord tone 5 of the chord, which is just a very common kind of like accompaniment when you're doing like a bass line where it might be like root, chord, 5, chord, root, chord, 5, chord. And it's just a good way that you can help to create motion, especially like if you are the only person playing. It's kind of like a cowboy rhythm is what they would call that kind of thing. We're not going to necessarily talk about the root and the 5 today, but we are going to introduce it with a song that we're going to be working on Wednesday. So hang tight on that for right now. And what I would recommend is just kind of looking at these rhythms where you're just strumming the full chord. For those of you that might end up with a general music thing, guitar is a really great instrument. Some of us might be really fluid at piano, and piano is great. I kind of came at general music in the opposite direction, where I am very fluid on guitar, but my piano skills are, lack a lot of technique and everything. But the nice thing is that with guitar, you might be thrown into a situation where you may not have a music room. You might be on a traveling cart. You might be traveling to other buildings where you're not going to have a steady room. So the guitar is always great because is a physically something that you can travel with. And the nice thing is especially like when I'm playing games, especially with like the little ones and we're singing songs, I like to accompany myself on guitar because it's a lot easier for classroom management where you can just kind of move around the room as the song is going on or as the game is going on. And it really kind of keeps the kids a lot more in line as far as classroom management because you're not stuck behind a piano and, a troubled child might be, halfway across the room. So it's really nice to be able to kind of move around. So I would really, encourage, especially if you're looking at doing general music, to really kind of get these drum patterns down. Not necessarily memorizing them, but the idea of just trying to get this right hand to just become much more of an autopilot for you. That's where you're going to find your best success with this rhythms. For the final, we will have some stuff where you're going to potentially have to demonstrate some strumming, and you'll also be given some rhythms where you have to tell me where it's either, is this note being strummed with a downstroke or is it being strummed with an upstroke? So just kind of keeping in mind, that again, downbeats are downstrokes, upbeats are upstrokes. One thing that I forgot to mention a little bit earlier was that while you're working on these exercises found in that rhythm packet, is that you can take any chord and work on just kind of strumming. You can also just work on just strumming with just not even worrying about something on your left hand. If you're just really trying to get this to be a little bit more accurate, just drop this out of the equation for the time being and just go ahead and just use your right hand. You can use it where you're strumming just one chord through the entire example. You can also do it where you're just kind of forcing yourself to move your hands a little bit more by just like, challenging yourself by switching every 2 beats or on every measure. Likewise, the bar chords that we started to talk about last week, this would be a really great example just to put something down and just get your right hand going as well. Again, it's not necessarily something that you're trying to memorize these things, but just being able to internalize I want to really make my right hand become just this autopilot of just subdividing up and down. And second, when you're looking at a rhythm that you might be given, this is how I should attempt to potentially strum this particular tune or this, certain set of measures. Okay, our last segment that we are going to talk about today is going to be real quick. Just give me a quick review on bar chords. So again, at this point, you should be working on bar chords every day, especially for those of you that have not had guitar experience before or bar experience before. This is going to take quite some time, so just please make sure that you are kind of helping to develop these muscles faster by just working on it a little bit every day. Again, I would encourage at least 10 to 15 minutes every day just working on bar stuff. And you know, you really don't even need to be super focused on it. You could just be sitting in front of your TV watching Netflix and doing these exercises. So again, taking your bar, starting with the high E string, the first string, then barring 2 of them together. After you strum the 2 strings, I would encourage just to kind of make sure that all of the notes are ringing out. Move on to 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Again, one thing that you may accidentally do is have your other fingers, your middle finger and your ring finger, kind of come down and help press the bar. You know, that's not what you're going to be able to do when you're doing bar chords, so make sure that you're relying just on your first finger to do it. Also making sure that you are on this part of your finger and you're laying it down as flat as possible. Sometimes when you're doing this, the finger might turn. So just making sure that your finger is lined up exactly with the fret, kind of going straight down. And again, what you're doing is the concept of the bar chord is taking 4 different shapes. The E major shape, the E7 shape, the E minor shape, and the E minor 7 shape, and basically just applying this bar to transpose those 4 basic open chord shapes into any key. So what you could do is a really good kind of game for yourself is knowing that your roots of any bar chord are found on the 6th string, the pinky of your 4th string, and the 1st string as well, which you're barring down here. And again, what you could do is just throw your hand up anywhere, make a shape, and just see if you can figure out what chord that is. So in this case, I've landed on the 7th fret with my bar, and I'm making the E major shape, so I know it's some sort of major chord. And basically what you do then is just try to figure it out. So whether you have to just, you know, count chromatically up from E, but again, your 7th fret would be the letter B. So by making the major shape along with it, it's a B major chord. Just for another example here, if I take this, I'm making the minor 7 shape, and I've landed on the 4th fret here. So again, that would be a G sharp minor 7 or an A flat minor 7 chord. Again, you know, these are just really great things to do. Just making sure, just kind of work on these just a little bit every day, because if you're trying to put it together by the end of the semester, it's not going to work within a week. So little bits every day is going to help better than just trying to put a ton of time in before. Again, if you guys have any questions on anything talked about today, the next lesson, we're going to just kind of work on one small little thing. So I'm not going to talk about bar chords next time, but just, you know, assume just keep continuing to work on